Hi. I'm going to cover two areas of value chain in operations. One is I'm going to talk a little bit about the trends that are going on and that in manufacturing operations that tend to make the job more difficult and need better management, visibility. And then I'll talk a little bit about managing the technology that enables visibility and better management of operations. So let's talk a little bit about the manufacturing dilemma. More stuff is happening all the time. For example, there's increase in stocking units. You know, you may have a success with a particular product, for a medium-sized application, and the marketing folks may identify an opportunity to grow their sales by addressing a smaller market, a smaller application. So you have a small product developed and introduced. Now that may increase sales, but it doesn't double sales. And then there may be a large application, and they come up with a product for the larger application. So again, that will increase sales, but not by 50%. So as time goes on, maybe they add colors, maybe they add all kinds of options to grow the market for this particular product. Well, over time, that increases the number of stocking units you have. But because it wasn't proportionate, the number of lots and batches also increased. So that even though sales revenue came up, the density of the lots and the batches increases. So there's more things to manage as a result. Of course, at the same time, you've got product development continues to improve the product. Product life cycles are getting shorter and shorter. So you have more and more change occurring in the design of the products, which then drives some obsolescence and changes that occur there that has to be tracked. Now, at the same time, government regulation gets involved, so there's more and more reporting to occur to the government. So in the right-hand side, you see a lot of things listed, but I've pointed out highlighted four to demonstrate that more and more stuff is happening. And because the change is more rapid, because customer demands change more rapidly, you've got less time. Now, being an engineer, I like to convert these things into formulas, and you see that on the bottom. More volume, more things occurring over a lesser period of time means that the speed of business is accelerating. Things are getting faster and faster and faster. Now, taking that another step, let's look at this from the viewpoint of your executive team, the CEO, president, chairman, those folks, vice president of manufacturing. Their metrics are very, very public. They're in, particularly for a publicly traded firm, they're in the balance sheet and the P&L statement. They're in that annual report and quarterly report. And the financial people in Wall Street look at this, they measure ratios, and they use that to determine the value of the stock and the value of the company. Well, if your inventory is increasing because you have more and more stocking units, that means that cash is taken and being consumed in the inventory. That hurts the metrics that Wall Street uses the value of a firm, and usually that is a decrement to the value of the stock. Not a good thing according to the metrics of Wall Street and your executive team. Similar type of thing happens with on-time delivery. Because you have more and more stuff in WIP, usually it gets clogged up in queues, and meeting customer commitments becomes more difficult, shipping on time. Customer satisfaction goes down, usually revenue growth declines. Again, sales doesn't increase the way it was forecasted, a problem with the folks on metrics on Wall Street, and a problem with your executive team. Because you have more inventory, your obsolescence goes up, and that is a problem with the P&L statement. It increases costs. margins go down, again, a problem for your executive team. So just imagine now the executive team, the CEO, is going into the office of the VP of manufacturing and says, hey, we've got this problem. Your inventory is going up, on-time shipments are going down, customer satisfaction. This is creating problems for me on Wall Street. I've got about a quarter, maybe 2 quarters to fix it before bad things happen. What are you going to do about it? Well, if that VP of manufacturing does not have good visibility and good management tools, good IT infrastructure, they'll make changes. They'll attempt to make some changes. Often the results are unpredictable. And if he turns around and says to the CEO, I don't know what I'm going to do about it, that's going to create some job continuity problems for that VP. So this losing control of executive metrics is putting intense pressure on folks in manufacturing to, despite the acceleration of business, to improve business performance. So to take this a step further, I'm going to talk a little bit now about the results from some surveys that ARC has performed in the past. This particular one is a survey of 151 manufacturers, and it was about production management systems, or MES, that value chain that occurs in operations, in the center of your supply chain. The primary reason they chose to acquire a production management application was visibility. Quality was quickly behind, but you can see visibility. 2/3 of the people said that was the primary reason they purchased it. And a follow-up question asked them what do they integrate it with, and you see that on the right-hand column. The dark blue is have now. The yellow means they plan to do it in the near future, in the next 2 years. And you see that they often integrate the production management application with the automation systems as well as ERP. So that gives them better visibility throughout the application set. So the primary reason is to gain visibility for acquiring these systems. And we can see why, considering the executive pressures, why that would occur. They need the visibility so they can manage those operations and retain their jobs. Now, I happen to think it's important to define visibility. This is a term that is used a lot, and we should put some context around it. What's good visibility and what's bad visibility, for example. To explain the chart, we have on the right-hand side the value of information, so to the organization, and there's a low and high for that. And then the collaboration throughout the organization, and there's a low and high to that on the bottom. Now, if information is transmitted to many people, obviously it becomes more valuable because more people are dealing with the same information, they have common context, they can communicate better and come to decisions more quickly. There is also the speed with which that information is transmitted. It is more valuable to the organization if that information is transmitted very, very quickly. And so the definition of good visibility is very fast distribution of good information to a wide array of people, those people who need to know. And ARC has done some research on that, and end users tell us that for level 3 applications, which is the space that CPM would be in, 15 minutes, so current within 15 minutes is good enough for good visibility. So this allows us to put some context around what good visibility means. Again, you see the top there. I'm an engineer, so I like to put in a formula. High value of information equals good awareness and fast speed. So I'm going to bridge into another piece of research ARC has done. And this one we call it best practice research, where we ask a series of questions that allow us to rank the responses. And the top 20% are leaders, the bottom 30% are followers. This particular research had 106 respondents. I'm not going to go through all the responses. I'm just going to cue into a couple that apply to this particular presentation. We asked the people how are their business processes are managed. So a business process is a set of steps, and it could be routing of materials. It could be procedures for order entry and configuration management. It could be when you set something up or not, standard algorithms for deciding when to set up for a new run or next batch or which batch you chose. So among the leaders in this piece of research, they managed, for the most part, their business processes through their IT system. So these rules, the business rules, were embedded in the IT systems, and they were followed automatically as a result. I'm going to go over to the followers for a moment. Their primary means of managing business processes were what's called institutional knowledge. So what's institutional knowledge? That means that I had a conversation with somebody a couple of 3 weeks ago, and they gave me this recommendation, so I'm running with it. Or 5 years ago when I started with the company, this is how I was trained, and so that's the processes I've used. It's very ad hoc in nature and certainly not well controlled, not consistent, and quite frankly, a horrible way to manage your business processes. So this particular piece of research shows that leaders use IT systems for business process management. And we're fortunate enough to have a follow-up question for that one. When your business process management is embedded in the IT systems, which IT systems are you referring to? And we can see the leaders use a variety of systems. So primarily they're production management systems, but they also augmented that with ERP or automation systems, or sometimes some custom applications. Comparing that to the followers, we can see basically not so much. Leaders manage their business processes in their IT systems, and they use the appropriate systems for the particular business process. Now, again, a little bit deeper into this, because I think this is very important for this particular presentation, is often people have a continuous improvement program. It could be lean manufacturing, based on lean manufacturing, or Six Sigma, or total quality managed, TQM. Those are the more common types of improvement programs. Our research shows that well over 80% of the manufacturers globally have one of those three continuous improvement programs. So is technology an aid or an impediment to your improvement program? We see among the leaders, they almost all said it accelerates or helps around CPM. And we asked around the different technologies. ERP, for the most part, the leaders say they help or accelerate, and the same thing for automation. Among the followers, who are for the most part using ad hoc institutional knowledge, we can see why they would have much less success. So leaders successfully apply technology across all these domain areas to manage their business processes and have well-running businesses. So I'm going to bridge now a little bit, and as part of this bridge, I want to ask a question of you folks, a polling question. So you should see now on the right-hand side the polling question come up. Yep, there it is. And I ask you, the participants, to click one of those four so we could see what the participants think their key impediments to their improvement program is. And we're going to compare this to a study that, a survey that ARC did. And the results of ARC's survey will be able to be compared with your results. Access to data is one of the selections. So can you get the data you need for Six Sigma? You think of Six Sigma, the MAIC process, define, measure, analyze, improve, control. So certainly the measure and analyze sections need good access to data. Just general visibility, knowing what's going on, is another selection approach. Senior management support. Does senior management give you the resources and the political cover so you can continue with your program? Or is it the sliding the old ways when you go to implement a change? Does it tend to decay and slide back to the old ways of doing things rather than having a more permanent, lasting effect? Time remaining is up, so we should be able to see the poll results on the right side shortly. Or
Hi there, Ralph. They're going to come on in just a couple seconds as we get our final attendees just giving their responses in.
Okay, all right.
And here they are.
Oh, good, excellent. So we see the biggest one, 39%, is sliding back to the old ways of doing things, and surprisingly, that's consistent with, thank gosh, our survey results. The survey of 106 responses is the most common problem is sliding back to the old way of doing things. And you see in the bright red and bright blue, it was thought to be the primary by the majority, and then we also included secondary. And we can see that our audience would agree with that. Access to data is number 2, and we can see that also is consistent with us, and visibility is number 3, so we see that up there also in the same rank order. Impressive. So let me just talk about the one response to this around preventing sliding back to the old ways of doing things. And I'm also going to address access to data, too. And I'm just going to go through a typical improvement project. You've got someone identifies a problem, a team identifies a defect or a problem. You begin some analysis, the team identifies improvement, and then the change goes into effect. Well, if you have manual business processes, decay typically occurs. And why is that? Because you've got a team on the first shift, for example, it may have come up with a solution and they've got to transfer that onto the second shift. Maybe the second shift didn't buy in totally. They don't totally understand the reasons for the change, and you gradually go back to the old ways of doing things. If you embed your business processes into the technology, you get consistency. And consistency with the key lean process improvement methodology, and the IT infrastructure enforces the change. And then you can build a continuous improvement on top of that. Another thing that happens when you have IT system support, you really have faster access to data. So not only do you enforce the change, usually you can accelerate change because you have better access to data and information for your analysis and improvement. Having a CPM system and embedding your business processes into those CPM systems helps solve both the sliding back issue and the access to data issue. Now, just the senior management issue, I happen to think that, let me just address that quickly. If you tie the results of the continuous improvement program to the metrics that are in the balance sheet and the P&L statement, you will retain senior management interest. They've got a lot of stuff on their plate, and they, like all of us, they're human, respond to their metrics. If you tie the results to their metrics, the P&L statement and the balance sheet, you're much more likely to retain senior management support. Okay, I'm going to shift gears a little bit, managing technology. Just let me say that IT is pervasive. Here we see some control stations in developed countries on the left side. There's one from the U.S. and another one from Ireland. And on the right-hand side, we see IT that's in the developing countries. I happen to do a search on the web. There's one from Kurdistan, and there's one from the largest, I think, the largest control room on the face of the earth, which happens to be in a refinery in India. And I believe this control station is even bigger than any of the control stations that NASA has for launching rockets. Huge presence of IT for managing systems. Now, ARC has a model for positioning of various IT. We call it our collaborative manufacturing management model. There is and it's along the different value chains. We have a value chain that goes horizontally. That would be the value chain domain, the supply chain side of it, source, make, deliver. There is design value chain. So you have the design, the make in the middle, and then support in the field, and the general enterprise business operations management domain from plant floor to business operations, coupled in the middle with the manufacturing on the plant floor, production management. And we at ARC extend this model. When we work with clients, we position their applications on these three value chains, and that can be used for business process management, application integration, what applications should you couple and transfer information and business processes across, and it even gets into application rationalization, what's redundant, what can be eliminated, and by expanding the scope of another application. And the key one, I believe, is communication with other departments. So a cross-functional team can look at this model and come to a consensus much more quickly. Now, we've done some research about how organizations manage this IT, and we find that consistent with the ISA levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, there are engineering or IT support groups. So usually ERP is related with corporate IT. Manufacturing does the CPM and the MES area. And then, of course, control engineering, the level 1, level 2 with the control system. We're finding that in the past there were clear lines of demarcation and people didn't talk to each other all that well. We're finding that in more mature organizations, the current trend, as business processes cross these three different domains and application integration crosses these three domains, people are having teams from the different groups to support particular projects or changes. And even some organizations are taking ERP out of corporate IT, put it in manufacturing IT, and then combining manufacturing and IT with control engineering so that all the applications that have to do with manufacturing are in one group. Dow, DuPont, and some others are examples of companies that have done that. And corporate IT becomes much more focused on finance, HR, and general support of the infrastructure for IT, like networks and desktop applications. But all the manufacturing ones, where those business processes cross boundaries, are put into one support organization, a combination of manufacturing, IT, and control engineering in the more mature organizations. So now let me just kind of get to my concluding slide. James Womack, as you may know, is the guy who pretty much invented lean manufacturing a couple of decades ago and still writes on the topic quite a bit. And he has a quote: "Managers will try anything easy that doesn't work before they try something hard that does." The easy thing that I see a lot of people talking about is these management dashboards with a dial on it, and when it's green, everything is okay, and when it's red, management needs to do something. I think that's kind of a panacea. What we need to do is really hard. It's building product on time, not early, not late, and not early so you have too much inventory, not late so you have customer satisfaction, on-time delivery issues, at the correct cost, and at extremely high quality. Meeting all three of those goals is exceedingly difficult, and we need good management, IT infrastructure, good business process management, and IT support organizations that respond to our needs. And this is extremely hard to get the visibility to manage all this stuff together. And I just concluding that, I empathize with the folks on this call, and the reason you'd participate is that your job is very difficult, and I'm just implore you to consider your IT systems and business process management, automated business process management. At this point, I'd like to turn the presentation over to the next speaker. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope it's been helpful.
Yes. Okay, so while Ralph talked about manufacturing operations and technology around it, I would like to expand this discussion to a broader supply chain space and touch upon briefly our approach to enhance supply chain capability within an organization, as well as the extended supply chain that goes beyond it. I will briefly talk about a case study where we had addressed some of these supply chain challenges and the business drivers through some intervention mechanisms that we will talk about now. And Harish, who will present after me, will take the thread and go deep into the manufacturing side of that case study where we have helped transform the manufacturing operations, which at the end of the day will enable the supply chain capability for the organization. What we are seeing today is the dynamics of the supply chain are changing very rapidly, and there are drivers across the spectrum of the manufacturing value chain, from design to delivery and even the returns process, and how some of these, what are the business trends that the manufacturers are adopting to address these drivers. For example, there are pressures of increasing product complexity, which is compounded by the global customer base that's driving manufacturers to move towards a global platform with regional localization, as well as a significant amount of collaboration and co-innovation that we are seeing that manufacturers are adopting with their tier 1 and tier 2 supply partners. And there is always a pressure on cash flow, which is driving manufacturers to look at collaborative planning more keenly. And what we are seeing is evolving into a demand-driven supply chain management principles. There is an increased focus on the recall and reverse logistics management, which seems to gain more and more prominence these days. Okay, probably you might have seen there are several maturity models that's in place today, but this is one that I like personally, and which is a very simplistic model, and it also provides a view of certain capabilities that gets enabled at each level of maturity. Almost pretty much most of the manufacturing companies, big or large, are at level 1 or have definitely the level 1 capabilities, and to a great extent the level 2 components of level 2 maturity enablers. Everyone has a certain level of S&OP for that matter in the supply chain, sales and operations planning, but the key difference is how effective and efficient the S&OP process is, and how tightly it integrates and manages the demand-supply matching in the overall flow, and to an extent how it integrates with third-party enterprises from a S&OP process. Level 3 is where we see a total demand-driven enterprise framework and the ability to use advanced analytics and data to actually shape demand, as well as be flexible and amenable to react to these demands. and that is where a lot of focus is there, and companies are trying to move and building capabilities around pockets of these level 3 enabling requirements. This is a typical industrial manufacturer supply chain, pretty much the kind of supply chain, the supply chain that we will look at in the case study example, and the kind of strategies that's available to pick and choose. And obviously these strategies on the left, they are not mutually exclusive, and companies tend to have different stream of strategies for different product segments. The strategy itself kind of determines the push-pull point in the supply chain and how much of postponement strategies can be enabled through the network. This dictates the response times to the customers and how much of product complexity can be satisfied within an existing supply chain, and also obviously the level of options that's made available to the customers. Okay, Ralph talked about manufacturer's dilemma at the beginning of this presentation. I look at it from a supply chain aspect. I look at it on the challenge the manufacturers always face between standardization versus specialization. And from the levers that we see from a sales and operations planning or a supply chain management policy perspective, these are the kind of enablers that we look at. And the differentiator comes from where you are on this spectrum. Given the complex supply chain and business models, there is always a question of where you want to put your capability across the spectrum. Our recommendation is to view this process maturity along these parameters of sales and operations planning, demand planning, visibility, capability to do ATP, and so on. A typical map or a typical current state for the industrial manufacturer that we see looks like this, and the target is to move to the right of the bar to provide global visibility across the extended supply chain, and also develop synergies across different business units, different regions, and build an integrated capability within the organization so that we can mature the entire supply chain that's available to the organization. Okay, coming to a framework, this depicts our approach to assess and enhance the capability of a supply chain. And when we say the capability, this is around maturing the supply chain as well as making getting a readiness in the supply chain to handle risks and disruptions. That is all we are talking here. So how do you manage disruptions in the supply chain, and how flexible is your supply chain to make amends and react to those? So we use proven and proprietary frameworks like the Policy Objective Matrix, which is an IP that has been developed by TCS along with Dr. Fukuda, which we use upfront at the beginning of the journey to set the stage for aligning the organizational priorities to the supply chain focus areas, and drive into the details of what process enablers and IT enablers are required to meet those business goals. In addition to that, post the PO matrix, we follow it with identifying the different supply chain streams that's available depending on what strategies you want to adopt, and map those as attributes and do a benchmarking exercise for the supply chain. We call it something called moving the needle, to do a peer analysis of the supply chain attributes, not at an organizational level, but at the particular supply chain attribute level. Then moving further, what we have evolved is many of you have seen value stream mapping done for many of your processes. What we typically do, a differentiator, is using simulation models to do a value stream mapping. We call it a simulation aided value stream map, to simulate different scenarios of the supply chain and how they can be modeled for different levels of risks, and identify what are the impact points in the supply chain. This is a very effective way to simulate the model and prove it in a very controlled environment. And we use tools like Quest to develop those simulated models of the supply chain. And this analysis lets us come out with possible transformational initiatives that's available and that needs to be deployed to enable the organization's supply chain. And we come out with something called the art of possible. What are all the possible elements of improvement on the supply chain, and how much benefits that we are going to drive? Because at the end of the day, any improvement that we do has to result in baseline business metric improvement. This is not an IT or an automation focused program, but how we can help achieve the improvement in certain metrics. The key metrics that we look at from an improvement perspective, or from a customer facing side, there are operational metrics and financial metrics. Any capability that we bring into the supply chain has to positively impact these matrices, and this is a snapshot of an interlinkages between these metrics and how positively or negatively a metric relates to its peer metric on the other side, and how they actually form a pyramid. Okay, now a polling question. There was a recent industry analysis done on how organizations are coping and approaching to address this supply chain risk problem. The polling question should come up on the right. Yeah, there it is. So from your perspective, I want each of you to mark up which mechanism do you believe is the most effective in improving your organization's risk management capability. Is it looking at ensuring an alternate sourcing strategy or improve end-to-end automation, change inventory management practices, or require business continuity planning by suppliers so that the risk is minimized? I have the industry results with me that was recently done, but let's look at what you guys think and how it has been effective in your organizations.
Hi there, Laksh. We have a lot of people sending their responses in, and we do still have about half a minute left over. So it's up to you if you'd like to continue, if you'd like to give us a little bit more information about the options, or if you would like to wait a couple more seconds till everyone gets their responses in.
Yep. Let me continue on this slide itself. So obviously, there is no one straight answer. You might use a mechanism of multiple steps, or even things that's not on this list. But what we would like to see is how effective any of them has helped you in addressing that risk in your organization. Yep, I think there's a time up. So Rima, can we see the result now? Okay. It's we see 38% believe end-to-end automation is a key or a driver for them. But let me read out. The recent study shows that ensuring alternate strategies probably seem to have helped those organizations. About 40% of the respondents felt ensuring alternate strategies had helped them. Obviously, IT was a close second. Here, that's the flip there. But yes, probably the third and fourth, changing inventory policies as well as business continuity, fare at the bottom of that list. Yes, pretty close. Okay, I'm on the last slide. So this is the case study that I will bring into the context and let Harish continue on this. So as a case study, so this is a typical example where we recently enabled our customer look at their supply chain problem, and the problem statement is very clear. Probably for most of you it will resonate. There is a lack of this organization has a mix of low volume and a high volume product line, and there is always a challenge of managing the production and inventory models around how to address this, and as well as to improve their on-time delivery matrices. What we did is we developed a differentiated supply chain enabling mechanisms for this organization, and also developed something called a plan for every part, which is the inventory planning and modeling policy for each of those segments of product components. And what the whole simulation aided mapping, value stream analysis, as well as the benchmarking exercises that I talked about, and we drove in process maturity on the value chain, including order profiling and integrated order management framework, as well as the setting up an inventory policy for high volume and low volume parts. And the key is how we can do it dynamically. It's not a one-time exercise that, okay, we set up the policy for components or end products, but how on a monthly or a quarterly cycle during the S&OP process, integrate it and manage these planning policies dynamically, so that the system is both self-evolving and has control measure built in on the inventory model to sustain the on-time delivery as well as inventory levels. So in addition to the transformations that we did on the supply chain side, we realized that we cannot achieve the complete benefits of this program without touching and transforming the manufacturing operations on the shop floor, which will help the organization achieve the target metrics that we want on the supply chain side. So I would now request Harish to cover that part of the program in detail and talk about the MES transformation that we conducted. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, PLN.
Harish. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, PLN. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to participants here. So we have heard from Laksh as well as from Ral about the two distinct spaces where we are talking about manufacturing operations and how effectively we can manage those, and the supply chain management transformation, which are the key drivers which any CXO or any senior management organization look for. Drilling down detail into this case study, this is a unique merger of supply chain with manufacturing operations, where the make process is zoomed and how it has impacted the key supply chain KPIs is quickly going to walk through in the next couple of slides. See, we are talking manufacturers to be smarter in that sense, and just we'll take a step back and wants to see what makes organizations smarter in that way. So this is a typical diagram of an integrated enterprise where you have the main manufacturing facilities which are tightly collaborated with their suppliers. They are in direct touch with their distribution centers and finally the customers. But the key attributes which today industry is looking for, which makes them smarter, is how they are tightly integrated with their primarily with their business systems, where they are doing the global planning, or they are doing the strategic purchases, or they are doing effective demand management for the orders which they are going to fulfill from these manufacturing environments. So critical is that the plant should make its data visible and faster, and it can be accessed by the business systems to make better business decisions. So one key attribute is ability to make plants information visible and tightly integrated with the corporate. All manufacturers, whether it's P&G or whether it is Cummins or whether it is Boeing, are conscious about their customers, and customers are more and more demanding and putting pressure to make customer-specific needs to be matched in those products. They are asking lot of data from a traceability viewpoint, and sometimes as a manufacturer you would like to have callbacks for certain defects which you have identified, which might have by mistake has gone into the solution. We have seen one of the best manufacturers like Tata also looks for those callbacks. People are looking customer-centric, trying to see a flexibility to be as close as to the customer needs and give them sufficient information by creating the traceability of the product and available to the customers. So that is more of a customer view. No manufacturer today is going to be smarter if they are not thinking of energy, if they are not thinking of waste. Energy costs are increasing, sustainability is becoming a global issue, and manufacturers are looking for opportunities to reduce their energy consumptions and effectively reducing the waste primarily air and water waste, which a manufacturing facility is producing. Another important aspect is in the last slide of Ralph also we talked about lean, we talked about the cash flow, the money getting stuck into the system when the inventory levels are high. And for that you need an agility in terms of adaptability of the plant to switch over one manufacturing to another when the demand fluctuates, or you are should be in touch with your suppliers in almost real-time sense, so that the effective just-in-time availability of material can be made possible based on the changes which you are performing at the manufacturing environment. And these changes are real-time changes based on the constraints or based on the asset issues or the quality issues which any manufacturer struggle at the plant level. And the new concept which is coming in the smart manufacturing as an area is to enable operators with more information, the plant data which is getting collected, because plant generates lots and lots of data, how that data can be converted into a knowledge and help operator guided with the information so that he can take better operational decisions. So looking into these attributes and looking into what are the challenges, what we believe is all these things are possible if the plant itself is smarter, and that is what Laksh referred in his discussion, that you can have the best of the supply chain, but if you open the make box and if that is not flexible enough, that operation is not going to adopt demand changes, then it is difficult to achieve those business objectives which you have laid down at the higher level. And that is what the struggle of this manufacturer Cummins as a case study, what we are referring here is. See, Cummins is using this manufacturing operation system for many, many years. Almost they have got legacy applications, some pointed solutions, doing level 3 functions in some form or the other in all of their 14 manufacturing facilities. And these facilities produce different, though we are commonly known Cummins as an engine manufacturer, but they make variants of engines. And the whole manufacturing process varies from their different SKUs. They make submarine engines where the block is stationary, component moves. They make truck engines where components comes to a defined workstation and the block moves. They also had a lot of complexity when it comes to their shop floor systems. Their US plants are on Rockwell, Siemens plants are on Siemens technology is used for their European facilities, China plants is on Mitsubishi platforms. Even their business systems are different. There are some manufacturing facilities which are on Oracle manufacturing, some of them are still continue to be on mainframes, China facilities on MFG Pro. So it's all possible complexity as a typical manufacturer with global operations in mind existed when we started this engagement or extended our supply chain engagement with them. What we realized, and it's a realization which happened with the Six Sigma study, that end of the day all these manufacturing facilities are assembly operations and they follow common processes. So we set up a target to create an 80% standardization of assembly processes across facilities, across BUs, the type of products, when it comes to assembly-based operations. They also realize that they use different technologies and different ways of achieving a particular function. It can be as basic and rudimentary as, the controllers are the logic is written, the functional logic or the BPM which Alf mentioned is written, those business rules are written in the controller itself. Somewhere they are written on mainframe and somewhere they are written on those legacy applications which we talked about. The other, from a people perspective, I see the complexity, every plant has its own know-how. They are trying to enhance these applications with more and more functions coming in, which makes plant-specific requirements getting into this. With the people, which is plant-specific people are managing those, which increases this cost of support of these applications to extremely high. They wanted to get rid of all this, try to use a flexible modular tool available for them, leveraging standards like Mehra or IS 95 standards, and create a transformation with respect to the management of these applications. So if I have to club all this, what they are looking for a wall-to-wall transformation, which normally what we have seen in our business systems, where we talked about people, process, and the platform transformation going forward from disparate system to a flexible modular system, from non-standardized processes to a standard processes across BUs, from site-specific competency building on supporting these applications to central support mechanism with ticketing system to create help desk in supporting these plans together. This whole transformational journey is planned to be taken forward, and the approach which has been adopted is represented in this slide, where we went into and studied their manufacturing facilities and realized that there are certain functions which can come out from the level 3. There are certain functions which needs to go to business system, some core function needs to go to the control system, and clean up the functionality need, and by creating a common functional blueprint across facilities, which are common to the types of engines what they manufacture and to the type of manufacturing they have. In this process, we also standardize the integration and uses B2MML messaging between the plant floor systems and OPC XML from the shop floor systems perspective as a standard mechanism of communication from these two ends. So we standardize the integration aspects, we standardize the functional aspects, and target was, we also realized that no application can be 100% reliable to or meet the specific plant needs. Target was always to keep it 80% or close to 80% target. Based on this blueprint, the different design approaches were built, and finally which application got chosen against that functional specification needs. The design and development of the global template happened, and this rollout of this application after doing the 2 pilots is currently what is going on. Whichever application is getting deployed there is coming under the central deployment, central support mechanism. Another important aspect is normally plants are taken these decisions of shop floor environments independently. In this particular case, it was more of an ERP way, where the whole conceptualization and control of this application has happened at a central location, and the global template creation happens also at the central location, and plant-specific rollouts happen to the regions, to the unique integration needs or to unique functions, like a typical ERP deployment where you clear the golden template or the master template and try to roll out across manufacturing, across operations in the globe. Something similar has been leveraged in this case. This is my last slide, which actually talks about some of the business benefits which they have realized after replacing their legacy pointed solutions to the new modular flexible application, which uses BPM as the core engine built into this application, with the standard functionality coming forward in terms of quality parameters. The company has also published the data with respect to the business benefit they got in terms of reduction of total cost of ownership coming down drastically, the way they were managing initially and the way now the new things is getting managed. You can see it's a lot of productivity improvement in terms of defects which has come in. It is because the plant produces lot of different custom build orders, and lot of time manual interventions to these orders creates those errors and defects which are bound to happen in an environment like this. So, and they were able to reduce these defects and finally improve their throughputs. And if it needs to be told in the complete balance sheet way, they were able to improve their inventory turns in this case and able to reduce their inventory cost, holding cost on a big number, which has impacted. The impact is so high that all the facilities today are looking for this solution to be deployed, and there is a roadmap which got created by the organization that over a period of time in next 4 or 5 years will be able to take this whole transformational journey end to end into this. So I will rest my discussion here with this comment that this is where the integration of business systems with the manufacturing system and the kind of impact which it can make if you connect these two together in an effective manner. The KPIs which shop floor is impacting will impact your supply chain KPIs, which anyway is looking from, and there is always a scope of improvement